This week on the 167, we get to talk to Pastor Andrew about the meditations of our heart and the words of our mouth and how that relates to our lives and our soundtracks. Welcome to the 167.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Hey, welcome back to the 167. I'm here with Pastor Andrew Lewis.
Pastor
Drew. Somebody called me Pastor Luke 2 weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, I'm not offended by that.
You know, you're in good company. There's a whole book of the Bible and Luke. You know,
Yeah.
it's good.
There's no book of Drew as far as I know, but
No, that's
there should
right.
be.
Hey, I've had my Baja Blast already this morning. I'm ready to have a Baja Blast.
Was
on
it a
the
Baja
167.
Blast Zero?
Yes, of course.
Don't you have to like order those on Amazon?
No, that was Code Red Zero.
Oh, okay.
I think I already bought out the world supply of Code Red Zero, which was like 3 cases.
And they're like, "This is a collector's item." And you're like,
Yeah, I was like, I did keep the box though. So.
you're creasing the Jordans.
Yeah.
So this week you get to bring the word, which I thought was exciting because that's your
Yeah.
first time doing it here, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
You used to preach it. It's
Yeah.
not your first time preaching. It's
No,
just your first time preaching.
I mean,
in your life.
I'm always when they let the music guy preach, it's a very strategic risk, with it. But I always enjoyed doing it, and it was fun. It was fun to prepare differently, and of course, I love how amazing our worship team is, and of course, having a youth pastor who knows what he's doing in the worship and just trusting the team with that was awesome. But it was fun.
Yeah, it's good to be multi-tiered, and I think it's a great series for you to preach because, of course, it's soundtracks.
True.
So bring in the music guy, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought we really did miss. Like at the beginning podcast, I was asking about soundtracks, and we didn't do scores, and I got raked over the coals by my wife about that we didn't do what were the best scores and things like that for movies. But
Yeah, I have strong feelings about that too. So
oh no,
yeah.
that is a separate podcast. But you did talk this week about making mixtapes, which I will admit, being someone with gray hair, took me back.
Yeah.
And so you kind of talked about some of the technology that was involved in that. First, it was records, and you just had to stack vinyl, and then you actually made mixtapes that were cassette tapes, and then of course burning CDs and how it's kind of progressed from there. What was like your heyday?
Yeah.
What was the tech?
I was never really, I did not have all of the tech resources growing up that a lot of my peers did. So when they had a Sega, I had a Nintendo. When they had, whatever, portable CD players, I was still on the, I was always like one element behind and catching up, which is fine. But so really, for a lot of high school, I would ask my friends to burn me CDs because I didn't even know how.
Right.
And I would say, will you burn me a CD with the stuff we like, or give me something new, whatever. But then once I did catch up and get that ability to burn CDs, then I became obsessed with always trying to make the perfect mix, group of mixes for the car. What's my, back in the day, my Christian rap mix, my, Christian pop, punk, rock, whatever. I would get really into it, and I would have a whole organized sleeve in my car, ready to go.
You had to be discerning because there was only a regular CD. If you're talking about 3 to 4 minute songs,
Depends.
12, 15 songs max on the CD. Depending on how big the CD was, and so you had to be a little bit more distinguishing rather than just I'll add 500 songs to a playlist and put it on shuffle.
Only the elite of the elite, or however you wanted to do it, really had to make it on there. Yeah.
And it was if you did it right, it was what order did you put them in?
True. Yeah. And a lot of times I would say, you know what? You get, we're going to talk later about what went on the cutting room floor from the message, but I was this close to showing that old infomercial that all millennials know, where, how back in the day, they would make compilation discs and stuff like that. And, I could go into Wow 1996 and all those beautiful things. But the commercial that all millennials know, Pure Moods, and then be Enya and all this
Oh yeah.
So I almost just straight up showed that commercial, be this was this was playlists. I mean, at a time, it would be like whatever they would give you.
Like you would give me a CD with multiple artists on it?
Yes. So now, because at the time there's no other way to achieve that really.
Right.
Because really burning CDs came a little later probably than.
Well, we could talk for probably an hour about this, how it changed culture, where now people just release singles, basically. There's no pressure to release an entire album where
Yes.
every song is great. It was just like, here's this song and this song and this song.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember, this is embarrassing, but probably for a girl, making a mixtape. And this came up, I took my kids to Disney this week, and we were in line at like a old jungle themed ride, and there was a JVC dual tape deck player with the radio tuner on. I was like, I looked at it, I was like, I think I owned that thing. It was supposed to be like this retro looking thing, but
it's retro to the kids.
But you used to sit there and have to record, and then at the end, what you could do is, if you were really in love with a girl, you'd write a song on your guitar, and then you'd press record, and you just have to sing into your stereo and play your guitar, and it would pick it up at the end. That's how you would, either start or end the mixtape.
And that would capture all your imperfections and would just be all out there. Not like what you hear today.
No, it's definitely not overprocessed. So that's a fun thing, and it's fun to talk about. But like you said in your message, you're focusing on what are some of the words that we use, and what are the things that, because in those same ways, using those mixtapes, oftentimes when we were like doing those for people that we loved or for a buddy, we'd say like, hey, we want a road trip mic. It was our way of expressing or speaking a mood that we were in, a season, a phase. You know, it was never a phase. Yeah. But it was a way to express that. And so in the same way, our words come out, and they kind of then dictate what we're going to do. If it was a bad mix, you're going to have a bad trip. And so when we were doing that, so you said that words matter to God. And if I love this when you said this, you said, if you have a jar and you fill it with tea, it's not going to overflow with lemonade. And so we were talking about our words being an overflow of our hearts. And so what are we as Christians in this kind of age of technology and everything's at our fingertips? What are we to do with filling ourselves? Is it just like we have to live like monks and we can't watch anything? What is something for you that's like, this is how I kind of regulate my content?
Sure. Well, I could first say that I don't always do a perfect job of it, for sure. But I mean, to me, it's like where does it start? Where does your day start? What really is dominating? And then what are your convictions? Because we're all going to have a little bit different upbringing, a little bit different things that bring us down a little bit more than others. But is your day starting off with something that is unquestionably good and healthy, godly? It's like first fruits. It's like where does your day, what does it start off with? Where does it begin and go from there? Is the first thing that you take in when you wake up social media? Is the first thing that you take in, I don't know if you wake up and watch a show or a movie or something when you get ready, is the first thing that you take in some song to get you wake up? What is that first thing? I think that's a big deal because that sets the tone. What are you doing passively, even when you're if you like to turn something on when you're driving, if you'd like to turn something on when you're doing chores or folding clothes or whatever, what are you doing passively and actively? And you don't want to just count it up and meet a quota of this. I listened to this many things from the world and this many things from God. But I really think it's like, where does your priority lie? How does your day start off? And then, there's, like we said, there's so much that you can consume, and most of it is ungodly, and there's different degrees of how terrible things are. And of course, the really terrible things, we just need to stay away from those. But I would say go with your own conviction too, because something that is in the gray area, it may affect you differently than someone else. You don't want to cause someone else to stumble, just to seek to be wise about that. And I think it's probably one of those things that if we're being honest with ourselves, we're being honest with God, we probably know it when we see it, when it's something that is something we need to avoid, and something that's causing us to stumble, bringing us down, triggering different temptations. And, that's an easy, let's cut it.
What's the famous definition of pornography is, I can't define it, but I know what I see. I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And I think that people can pay attention to that. I remember there's just been shows that I've watched that I've had to stop, where it's like, you know, there was a big craze around Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy, and I started watching it, and I was just like, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
Like I was like, really, like I'm like I don't know if being able to stand around the water cooler and talk about this, it's just
Maybe not worth it.
yeah, it's like, is your FOMO really worth it?
Sure. Yeah, and of course, I mean, I got to hold grace for people on something, and just we try to raise our standard collectively as we go, and always be like we talked about in the message, like that stuff will never stop coming, and it seems like it'll never stop getting worse. It seems like our bar for like what is inappropriate has gotten so much lower
Yeah.
since the advent of those HBO type channels, that it was like, oh, at a certain point now in American culture, 90s, 2000s, now the shows that we're all talking about are increasingly very, very intensely inappropriate. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just, you know, it wasn't just like Everybody Loves Raymond, they said some bad words. Now it's like, oh my, we're now talking
The premise of
casually
the
about
show.
very uncasual things. So that is a dangerous slippery slope.
Well, it's like I feel that temptation where, so this is, I guess, confession time, but you know, Deadpool is coming out, and
Right.
they've got Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine in the original like yellow Wolverine, and I'm going, do I want to see Hugh Jackman as yellow Wolverine? Yes, I do.
Yellow Wolverine brings up feelings for me from like childhood 90s days.
Yeah, like you know, the old X-Men cartoon,
Yeah.
and I'm going, but I know.
Of course, they weren't saying all those same words on the
Right.
cartoon. Yeah.
But I'm going, I know what I'm getting into if I go see a Deadpool movie, and it's like, is it really worth the nostalgia of it?
Continued confession time. I went and saw Furiosa, the Mad Max this
Oh, yeah?
weekend, which I thought was pretty cool. But I had one of those. So I'm sitting there. I'm there to watch the movie about the post-apocalyptic, you know, vehicle wars.
See
or
Chris Hemsworth
however
be a
you would.
villain.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that movie, it didn't really convict me. It was pretty good. But the previews,
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. This thing where you sit there in the movie theater and they're showing a preview, and instead of that normal green, there's usually a screen that's green with like some white things on it. That goes before every preview. Now they're red.
yeah. It's called a red band trailer.
Oh no. Oh no. You're sitting there going,
Like-
wow, that's a preview. And it's like as inappropriate of a thing you've ever seen, and that's just new. But people will say, oh, get over it. That's in the movie. I'm like, okay, right. Yeah, I didn't come to see that movie.
Right. It's like
That's a
now we're
lot.
just giving it to you.
That's
anyway.
a lot. Yeah. And I mean, I was sitting there. I was kind of had strangers on either side of me. And I just thought, man, we're just sitting here watching some. And they had that Wolverine Deadpool trailer.
Well-
They were letting it fly.
And for me, like you said, for me, it's not even necessarily on purpose. It's the world is here accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
And like I talk to people about this with their kids, even where I said, you know, like my teenagers and my young kids are probably super annoyed with me that it's like, you know, when they get up in the morning where they're like, can we watch a show before we go to school? You know, they'll be ready and have
Yeah.
20 minutes to kill. I'm like, you can watch something on, I think it was like PBS Kids and
Yeah.
Right Now Media.
Eli's going to love this. We have the same conversation every morning.
Yeah. I'm like, you can watch something on Right Now Media. And it's like, well, why? I'm like, because just being in the world,
Yeah.
you're going to get this
True.
thing. So if we have purposeful time, why would
Yeah.
I not fill it with,
Sure.
you know, the actual thing that you're going to need and want?
And I can also plug a new thing that I have recently subscribed to called Minnow.
oh,
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about?
No.
MINNO. So it's basically like I don't know how to compare it, but basically like a Right Now Media similar thing, but a Christian content for kids kind of Netflix where they do take a bunch of really good other content that other people have made, all the VeggieTales stuff like that, but they make their own original content. They've got a great new, very, very high quality animated series about David. Anyway, Minnow, pretty cool.
Well,
Young David.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's on
That's
Angel.
theirs.
Angel Vid.
Yeah,
as well.
that's Minnow's deal. I'm pretty
That's
sure.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my kids love that show, and like they love.
When they're making a movie.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
They like this show called The Tuttle Twins, which is on Angel, which
Okay.
is hysterical. But it's it's super like there's like an episode on Bitcoin. It's like it's a very right wing, you know, like
Right.
family values propaganda kind of
Ah.
show, but they love it. And so it's like I'm
Yeah.
going, I will absolutely brainwash you with this stuff.
Sure. Yeah, in the morning, it's the same thing at my house. It's like, I got all the way ready, just like you said. I got my everything. I got my Chromebook. I've got I brush my teeth. Can I watch? Can I play? I'm like, you can turn on some Minnow. You can turn on some Right Now Media. You can something I can trust, something that's gonna start you off well. And they don't always want that.
Right.
Sometimes they
But
want.
they'll take it.
But yeah, or if they don't take it, whatever. I'm not.
Or use your imagination.
Yeah,
Color.
I'm like, or you can have nothing. How about that? So yeah.
Well, and in that kind of thing you talked about, this is one of my favorite images in Psalms, is the thing where it says, you know, that you're going to be planted like a tree by the river, and that in its season, like that you're like a tree planted by the river, and in its season, it always is bearing fruit. It's nourished by the river and all those things. And so when you're talking about that, you know, talk to me a little bit about this, because this is what we're talking about as being purposeful. You know, it's like if you're a tree planted in the wilderness, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But if you take the time, you're like, I want to plant an apple tree and I want it to bear apples all the time. Well, you're gonna have to plant it right by the river and the roots sink down. So tell me a little bit about what is that picture like in real life for us?
Yeah. Well, think about what it takes in Psalm 1 when it's talking about that. What does it take, like, physically, when we're talking about, you know, as somebody planting a tree, considering the factors that are going to go into that being a healthy tree, all these things we're talking about, like you said, location, that real estate, where is it planted? What are the surrounding factors that it's going to be encountering every single day? Are you setting it up for success? But then it's not just in the pre-planting planning that does matter. When you're planting it, how you plant it, and then all those factors afterward. It says it lasts for generations. I mean, that's what we want. So when we look at the tree, how does it work with the tree? How do we say, well, how does that work with us? I mean, like we said, being intentional. I mean, God can use accidental, you know, God is sovereign over these things, and he can do an amazing thing even in spite of me sometimes, but that's not what we should be doing.
Right.
We want him to work through us and in us, not in spite of us. So yeah, can a tree grow in unideal conditions sometimes? Yeah. Like a broken clock can be right twice a day. But how are we intentionally trying to put ourselves in the best possible position for God to speak to us? What are the things that we need to avoid? What would you want to avoid in caring for that tree? What are the things that you would need to fend off? What are the outside, aggressors against that tree? So, I mean, obviously the water, to me, the watering of the tree, that's the word to us, and prayer to us. It all has to start there. I mean, sorry guys, that's just the answer. I don't
Jesus,
have
God,
a
and
better
prayer.
answer. There's not one. Sometimes I do think that we have this innate desire to hear something new sometimes, but we have to learn when there's not a better, newer thing for something. There's not a better answer. It really is getting into the Word, the Bible, and prayer. Those are the two best things. That will never not be the answer. The Sunday school answer will never not be the best answer in that case.
People don't want to hear that, though. It's like
Yeah.
the new trend I'm seeing online where it's like Ozempic and all these different weight
Right.
loss drugs. And it's like, no, it's probably just watching what you eat and exercising and being healthy.
Yeah, and
It's
there's
like,
there's some side benefits of, I know that helps some people with some diabetes and things like to regulate. That's fine, but like you're saying, ideally, I think we can all agree the best, most healthy way is to
Yeah.
watch what you eat and exercise.
if I'm choosing French fries over fruit,
Right.
there's probably that's an
Yeah.
easier thing. And it's the same thing with Christianity. It's like, are you, I had this deep conviction the other day because I started to play Wordle, which,
I never have given in because I know it would happen.
yeah. And it's just like, you just guess this word and it's like once a day kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so I do it because one of my little girls, like, she loves to do the Wordle with me. So it's like, this is our thing. And so I started to do it. And then I realized that I had a better streak on Wordle than I did on the Bible app. And I was like,
Ooh. Yeah.
like, And it's
You
but
know, I always want there to be a caveat on the Bible Streak app that's public on your U version. If you do that, I was going to be like, there would be a caveat where you could say, I don't always just read the Bible on this app.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, my streak here is not always indicative of when I read the Bible. Just saying.
that's true.
So sometimes I have opened up the Bible app just to read a verse out of it, just to keep the streak alive, which is evil. You know,
Right.
Really, it's a lie. But then sometimes I don't even open up the app, and I have actually I pulled out the old
Well,
school.
it's like I don't care if you do it old school or new school, but like I said, there are people that have better snap scores than they do.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I don't know. Like some of this is for me. We were praying this morning. Some of the pastors and elders get together and we pray on Tuesdays, and I always find it hard to kind of word my prayers these days because I feel like this conviction where it's like, Lord, make us submissive to you, and it's like, is he gonna, like, is
Yeah.
God gonna force you to submit to him? Like we were praying for peace, and,
Yeah.
and there's a verse that says, if you take on compassion, if you take on these things, you'll have peace. And it's like, Lord, make me compassionate, and I'm just like, in some ways, I'm like, this is my job.
Yeah.
Like, this is my responsibility. And so it's the same thing with a tree. Like I can plant a tree by a river, and it's like, and it could just be like, you know what? I'm going to make my roots go all the other ways except to the source of life.
Yeah.
And river. And I'm going, and then meanwhile, if I'm that tree, I'm praying, Lord, water me.
Right.
And he's like,
Well-
I am the river.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
tap into me.
Right.
Like abide. And I've always find that convicting when I'm praying those prayers, like, Lord, just make me more obedient to you. And it's like, that's your part.
Like, sure, but what are we doing? One of my favorite movie quotes ever is, what is it? Evan Almighty. When Morgan Freeman, God, says, and if Evan, one of our drummers on New Life, was here, he could do the proper impersonation.
oh yeah,
but
he's a great person.
I'm about to get us canceled and try this impersonation. But he says, he's talking to the main character there, and he's God, and he says, that's kind of what he's asking. He's like, okay, fine. All right, I want all the good things that you want me to have. Just do it. He says, well, if you pray for patience, is God just going to zap you patience, or he's going to give you opportunities to be patient?
Right.
So that actually made me think when I was like 16 or whenever I was like, good point, Morgan Freeman. Good point.
Right. And it's just like, if there is this, it's kind of a funny thing because, like you said, if we stick with this metaphor of the tree, it's like going, if you are planted near the river, it doesn't matter if there's no rain.
Right.
It doesn't
You're not
matter if
just
there's a
waiting
drought.
on something to keep you alive. You already know the source and you have it. And that is the beautiful picture that we get to enjoy.
Yeah.
That we're not waiting on something. We don't have to. We already have what we need, but yet we sit there and pray for rain when we have the stream.
Yeah. It's like saying the Holy Spirit is patience.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're in a trying season or a trying situation of going, the reason you don't have patience is because you're not letting that patience come through.
Yeah, none of us have ever, for one single second in our life, lacked the opportunity to practice patience. And when we have the Holy Spirit, we've never lacked the help. So
It's just,
it's very tough still in our flesh.
it's our failing and it's our flesh. So I want to give you a couple minutes here at the
Sure.
end to kind of ask, is there something that ended up on the cutting room floor? I know sometimes we're writing messages like, man, I
Yeah.
wish I could have talked more about this.
Sure, there was some jokes, and I'll still cut them again right now. It's probably for the best. But and of course, I could have had a lot more fun. I was really determined for my first time preaching at New Life. I was very determined to not be teased about going too long. So, so I think that was probably people's. If they were betting, they would have bet the over. But so in the beginning when we're having fun with all the CD tapes and all that stuff, I could have had a lot more fun with that. But to be on the more serious side, there was I had a question up to the end, up to the moment. I had a question of how much of this will I go into, but really what I thought about was like, what if I brought up some specific type of life events that happen, or culture events, or just world events that we most commonly deal with, where either the words of our mouth and meditations of our heart are revealed for what they really are, basically. And what I mean by that is, I thought about bringing, when I talked about how sometimes we jettison things like the fruit of the Spirit, we jettison these things that are asked and required of us as believers. We eject them because we need something. We want something here on earth, and we're going to go about it the way that the world goes about it. So I thought about bringing up some specific things. So like that would, and sometimes it gets a little bit more hairy, a little more controversial, more real.
Right.
But so that's, in the moment, I thought for time-wise and wisdom's sake, I'll just keep it general. But hey, we're on the podcast.
I was gonna say, what's at least one specific thing that you were thinking about bringing up?
It gets real. How about these presidential elections? It gets real. I'm not going to say anything about, who to vote for or anything like that. I'm just saying, when we look at our behavior, that's something I have been so convicted of in the past 12 years or whatever, where I was so American, which is, it's not bad to be American. I love America. But I was so much more American than I was Christian at that certain time every 4 years. I just had to realize that, and it was so painful. It was such a painful breaking of a very strong habit. And then I would say, and then that, I was convicted of, I was so much more American than I was Christian every time an election comes around. Or I would attach myself to this person, whoever it is, and I would be so blindly, I don't know what do you want to say, but I'd be so blindly attached to that person that I would literally start to have these awful, hateful responses to anyone who was against my person, and just be like, now I'm basically treating these people like my enemy to achieve a worldly, temporary victory. And it's like, this is the conviction that I had, is that I would become a person of the world. I would become a member of the world for a certain time, because in my own pride, I wouldn't have said these words out loud, but my actions were revealing that I was saying, God, basically I was saying, God needs me to help win this thing. So he's given me a pass to do what, license to kill, any means necessary. God needs me. God needs us to win this thing for him, because this is the most important thing in history. Every time we say that, I mean, how silly must
every
that
election
be?
is the most important election
How
in history.
silly must that seem to our Heavenly Father? He's like, I still love you, but that's hot garbage. I mean, I'm still on my throne. I don't need you for anything, but I want you to be how I've called you to be. And these things that I've put in place, the fruit of the Spirit that I've asked you to bear every season, that I've planted a stream by the water to help you do so, it's for these times that I have instituted these things. It's not the time for them to be gone. It's the time for them to shine. And so that was my conviction. So I thought about bringing, things like the pandemic, things like cultural arguments. There's these things that are the real tough things. And hey, I think there's one coming up soon, so we'll have some time to practice.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, yeah. We encourage you guys, make sure that you are planted by the river and not planted in politics or in pop culture or anything. There's so many P's. So we want to encourage you to do that. This next week, we're starting a brand new series. Pastor Rick's still gone, but we'll be here.
It'll be you, right?
It'll be me. So we're going to start the summer sizzle. The sizzle. So
I still just think of bacon every time we hear we'd say sizzle, but Ryan did not allow for bacon to make it onto the
I'm just going to have to bring some. I want it to burn like a bacon candle.
Ooh, if that's a thing, I want one of those, yeah.
We'll see you guys here next week on the 167. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.